this computer.
So are you
I'm here with Joshua
video?
Brau from Ipsa, and we're talking about his beginnings in an incubator, the entrepreneur space in Queens. And quite honestly, this is on an organic recording in that I was just talking to Joshua casually in prepping for an op-ed that I'm writing with the president of the Queens Chamber of Commerce, Tom Gretsch, regarding the importance of incubation. And I realized this discussion is going to be interesting to entrepreneurs and incubators around the state. So I hit record. Thanks for letting me do that, Josh.
Sure. Well, let's see how it goes. I'm open to making decisions on the fly.
Great. So, and again, you will have veto power over whether this goes out.
I appreciate it.
Because I'm surprising you on it. So I was just asking how to get started and what brought you to the entrepreneur space originally?
So what brought us to the entrepreneur space was the need to get into a commercial kitchen, a licensed kitchen with the type of equipment that we needed to produce food on a larger scale than we could do in either a restaurant kitchen or a home kitchen without having to make the capital expenditures of having our own kitchen.
Right.
And there are, or at least there were, several companies trying to provide those services to food businesses, to small up and coming food businesses. But frankly, I'm not sure that as a for-profit model, it really makes sense. And the entrepreneur space as an incubator, as a nonprofit, is it has incentives that are aligned with those of the companies that are producing there. They're not trying to squeeze every penny of margin out of their customers, but they see us as more of a partner, and they're really there to root for and support our success.
Great. So to back it up for a second, in case this does end up becoming a public podcast, we were talking just before I hit record about your business model. And I came out from looking at the website saying you are obviously doing really high-end food, but freezing it, making it more distributable and more accessible to people. So, I guess talk a little bit about that business model, but also your revelation in getting into.
Sure. So look, everybody has a freezer at home. Just about everybody's eating frozen food in some form or another, but most of the frozen food that's out there has been of a fairly low quality. And that has nothing to do with the freezer as a technology for preserving food. In fact, freezing food is really one of the best ways to capture flavor, nutrition, and the things that we care about most in food. It's really that it's just been done from the beginning as a large-scale industrialized product with an emphasis on volume and less of a focus on quality. If you look at just about any other category in food, I like to think about beer or hot sauce or restaurants. I mean, you can kind of look anywhere within the food industry. There is an artisanal past that you can look back to that we have in many ways over the last 10, 20, 25 years begun to reinvigorate some of these categories with a more artisanal, higher quality approach. Whereas with frozen food, it started out as an industrialized product in sort of the post-war years. And so what Ipsa is trying to do is to take that artisanal approach and apply it to frozen food.
And so did you come at this, from the chef background, from the foodie background? What inspired you to launch Ipsa?
Well, I grew up in the food industry. I spent many years in Chipotle, McDonald's, Blue Apron, some big national food companies. And the idea for Ipsa really came out of actually the experience of being laid off from Blue Apron 6 weeks before my daughter was born.
Wow.
6 weeks before for our due date. And whereas I usually, under normal circumstances would have taken some part of the severance and, booked a fun trip for a few weeks and then gotten back to go find a job, I wasn't going to travel. And my wife said to me, she said, look, you've got some time on your hands. Why don't you go make some big batches of some of the food that we've always cooked at home and then frozen leftovers of and enjoyed having around, make some big batches and throw it all in the freezer so that we have it ready to go for this long, cold winter we have with a newborn ahead.
I love it.
And so that's what I did. And, I'm a fairly capable home cook. I'm obsessed with farmers markets and sourcing really great ingredients. And so, I think that's the main reason why my food is good. It's less my own skills than the fact that I know how to source ingredients. We've never been takeout people, and, takeout can be really convenient, but it tends to be a mediocre experience. There's, packaging, the fact that most food doesn't really travel well. It can be really expensive and relatively unhealthy. So, not to say we never eat takeout, but it just wasn't part of our normal rotation in the way that it is for so many New Yorkers. And so, after our daughter was born, we worked our way through the stockpile of frozen food. And then once it kind of started to dwindle, I began looking out at some of the grocery stores in my neighborhood, in Whole Foods, in Union Market, which is a high-end grocery store with a few locations in New York City. And I couldn't find any frozen packaged food that met my standards for taste, ingredient quality, packaging, minimalism, and realized that there was really, an opportunity there to elevate frozen food in this country, knowing that there is a culture of higher quality frozen food in Europe, in France, in the UK. There are businesses that are producing frozen food of a very high quality and, in a way that has become a part of people's lives. And that doesn't, they don't treat it like we do in the United States as an afterthought, but it's really a part of their regular routine and something that they can, really look forward to. And that's what we're trying to do with Ipsa.
So I want to go back into the history in a second of like how long ago you started up and what that process was like in going to the commercial kitchen and the services you got. But you made me think of, the first thing is the distribution model. So you make a big batch of food. What does that mean? What did that mean in the beginning? And then what does that mean now? Like, obviously you've been growing. What's a big batch? And then you store it somewhere, I'm assuming at one of your locations or at the incubator. And then how do you get it to your end customer? And is it B2B, B2C?
Sure. So I'll talk you through the whole model and the whole value chain. But I think that the key part of your question, which is the large batch component, is really what allows us to, is really the engine behind the business. And the reason for that is that by producing food in relatively large batches, and now they're large, what we're doing is large batches for a small business. I wouldn't say they're large batches for, major, compared to a major food processor. But by producing a single dish at a time in a large batch, we're able to use our two key inputs really, really efficiently with a minimum of waste: ingredients and labor. So when we're producing one dish at a time, we can order ingredients, on a large scale and get, the price advantages that come with that, and we can use everything that we buy. The same goes with labor. We can really schedule our labor around exactly what we need and not what. If you think about a restaurant where, a restaurant has to have their team in the kitchen, whether it's a rainy day that ends up, being quiet, or a busy day where they get slammed. And so, that efficiency really allows us to invest in our ingredients, in the quality of our ingredients, and, the focus that we have on producing the most delicious food possible. So the way the process works is, yeah, we bring in fresh ingredients and prepare them really just like you would at home, albeit on a larger scale and using some tools that most home cooks don't have available to them. We produce the dish, whatever it may be. We cool it and then pack it into the containers that it's going to end up, going to the customer in. Freeze it in those containers at our kitchen. Then once it's frozen, we pack each container into a case that we're then putting onto a pallet and storing each pallet in a long-term cold storage facility, which is actually not our location. It's a facility in Brooklyn that is just a cold storage facility where we pay for each pallet that we store, but we don't manage the property ourselves.
Got it. And I'm thinking, like, there's so many industries out there tied to this. Like, they must have a whole logistics system of being able to identify whose is what and how it comes in and how it comes out. So how many years ago did you start up Ipsa? And when did you end up in the incubator?
Well, we launched the business in February of 2020, just about a month before the pandemic shut down New York City. But we had been working on the project for about a year before that and had been cooking out of the entrepreneur space for about a year before we launched, as we were developing products, running pilots, and really just kind of getting our operation up and running and building that kind of muscle of producing food, as you mentioned, in larger batches, which is not, translating the types of recipes that we are developing, which are really inspired by the best of what you might cook at home, translating those for a larger scale. It's not particularly complicated, or it's not, it's certainly not rocket science, but it requires real trial and error and kind of working our way up. You can't really take a batch, a recipe that produces 6 portions and translate that into 1,000 portions in one fell swoop.
Right. So it's been about a year and almost 2 years, about a year and a half of being in business and growth. The one thing I don't know is, are you B2B, B2C? Like, is it a club that I could join and get shipments, or?
Yeah. So right now our food is sold primarily through our website. You go to the website, you place your order and schedule your delivery. And then from there we deliver, we don't ship, we deliver in New York City and a growing part of the metro area.
Okay.
So we also have a small wholesale business that we're selling to a couple of food retailers, and are in the process of really growing that roster. But the core business is direct to consumer. Though, when most people hear or think direct to consumer, they think about a box that's arriving via UPS or FedEx. And, we've really focused on a delivery model because we think that it results in a much better experience for our customers.
I might have to drive in to get it, though. I'm all the way out on the east end of Long Island, but eventually I'm sure you'll get out here.
We actually were in the Hamptons for a while over the summer, and we are looking to expand into kind of, I guess it would be Nassau County. I always mix up Nassau and Suffolk.
Nassau's the first one. Suffolk is.
Yeah. So we are, we're going to be launching in part of Nassau County in the coming weeks.
Fantastic. So in terms of incubation services, so obviously having a food incubator that was accessible for big batch is important. Were there any other services that you found valuable in terms of business mentoring or preparing you for the marketing piece or anything like that?
So I think there were so many ways in which the incubator was helpful for us, but first and foremost among them was the knowledge that they brought to help us navigate the regulatory hurdles that come with running a food business.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're producing food yourself, which is really a core part of what makes it Ipsa special, which is that we produce the food ourselves, which is not the case for most companies like us. There's just a lot of rules at the local, state, and federal level that you know, any business needs to navigate, and many of them are complex, and you know.
And Catherine Gregory knows them like the back of her hand.
Yeah, and she knows exactly. She really helped us understand kind of what steps we needed to take to achieve the licenses and certifications that we need. And the reality is that other than hiring a consultant for several $1,000s, there was really no way that we could accumulate that knowledge ourselves, because you know, you go to a state website and you know, there's like a 90-page document that, you know, I have 2 master's degrees, but it's still pretty hard to you know, parse out exactly what I need to know from those types of things. So having Catherine and her team you know, available was just a godsend for us.
So I know you probably only earmarked about a half hour for this call, so I'm going to be respectful of your time. We probably got like a minute left. So
go a little bit over if we need.
Good.
I can probably go till 10:15.
Good. Well, just one thing that I was thinking on this call, and it's something I discussed with Catherine a while back, and I just didn't have the bandwidth at the time. But we have a number of food incubators. We have a number of farm incubators that are servicing a lot of the folks you're probably already talking to for, you know, your sourced ingredients. I think that an important thing that we could do as an association is pull those incubators together, you know, and have them talking offline, but then network the entrepreneurs in those incubators.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm going to work with Catherine and some of the other incubators on. But you know, the question that I didn't ask, or something that you think that the incubation community should know, the business community should know about the experience you've had, you know, how could, you know, what should we replicate and what should we improve on?
Well, I guess they are, you know, my answer would have to be kind of 2 sides of the same coin. The thing that is so helpful for entrepreneurs about the incubator model is that in many ways it diminishes the need to raise a lot of capital on day one. And as I'm sure you know, raising money is really hard, even under the best of circumstances. And the entrepreneur space, in our case, the existence of it and our access to it allowed us to really delay raising money until we were already up and running, which was an advantage to us in so many ways. You know, not only because it meant that my co-founder Micah and I were able to, you know, maintain more control over the business, but it meant that we could really focus our time on doing what entrepreneurs ought to be doing, which is running their business and not, you know, constantly raising money. So that is something that, you know, I think that the incubator community should, you know, continue to really model, which is, and maybe think specifically about, which is the ways in which, you know, the incubation model allows entrepreneurs to sort of raise less money or forego raising outside money for a while. On the other hand, I think that, you know, the incubation community could really help with that process of raising money when the time comes. Because like I said, I mean, in my view, the best entrepreneurs are often people who aren't very good at raising capital, because it's a very particular skill set.
Yep.
And you know, the culture right now of going out to venture capital in many cases is not always conducive to the types of results that kind of we as a broader, business community might want, which is great companies that are producing products and services that really add value to the economy.
Right.
And, in many ways, the venture model does support that, but in other industries, I think it doesn't. In my industry, I think that the venture model is not always the best path to building a thriving, successful company. And I think that, if incubators can help companies raise capital in whatever way they can, that would be, enormously helpful.
So I'm going to end it there, and I'm going to agree with you there. And the incubators that might be listening to this podcast have heard me talk about potentially starting a investor series for all the incubators. Because as an entrepreneur in an incubator, a lot of us do well at raising some angel capital,
right?
But the VC round, the Series A rounds, where you need 3 to 5, is hard. But there's a whole capital stack that if we as incubators pull together our mutual Rolodexes, it'll be helpful to all the entrepreneurs in the network. So,
absolutely,
Josh, thanks for taking the time. Definitely, I'm gonna stay in touch. And you're prompting me to create a new category in my CRM, food entrepreneurs. I'm gonna make sure that
all right,
if there's any way we can help connect you guys. There's definitely strength in numbers. So thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, feel free to follow up when if you want me to approve the quotes for the article or the podcast or whatever.
I'll send you everything I'm doing.
Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.